Joe Rebelo for Rebelo'S Kenpo Karate, and in this particular show we're going to be going over some various aspects of the understanding of the iron fist and poison hand strike repertoire. And you say, well, what do you mean iron fist, poison hand? Iron fist in ancient Chinese terms is a reference to any use of the closed fist, whether you were striking with the bottom of the fist, the top of the fist, the front of the fist, or the back of the fist. Also, the use of poison hand. Poison hand is used to reference to the open hand strikes, many of which were influenced by the Chinese Kung Fu systems. They were then brought down through the various miscellaneous Kenpo systems. Again, the utilization of the various fingertips as weapons, also the open hand, again utilizing the bottom of the hand, the top of the hand, the back of the hand as well as the use of the fingertips in different various alignments. Now again, I do want to make a verbal disclaimer with this program. I do want to make a verbal mention of the fact that there is a high amount of danger involved in utilizing these given strikes when defending yourself. However, I do feel it's very important that you, as the general public, have a right to defend yourself, and obviously these techniques many times will be the equalizer that will help assist you in a life or death situation. That being said, now let's go to some of our iron fist and poison hand strikes. Okay, let's get started. We're going to be working on, again, poison hand strikes and iron fist strikes. Now, I want to introduce you to my best buddy here, Bob. Starts with a B, ends with a B. Bob. Bob stands for Body Opponent Bag. And we'd like to thank the great people at Century Martial Arts Supply for creating this wonderful device. And say hello, Bob. We're going to be going over some of the various strikes in the air and also applying them to Bob to show you some of the various actions and how to properly defend yourself utilizing these various actions and motions. Now, first of all, we're going to be working on one of the iron fist strikes, which is the use of the hammer fist. Now, again, the hammer fist is really the utilizing the bottom of your fist. The bottom of your fist is one of the strongest natural weapons you have as a human being. Many Kenpo systems, and again, we want to differentiate Kenpo from Karate. Kenpo, the law of the fist, one of the identifying features of Kenpo is the use of the hammer fist. You'll find that Kenpo practitioners use the hammer fist far more than, say, other conventional traditional karate styles. Let's show you what we're talking about. Now here, we've got Bob, and we're going to talk about the use of the hammer fist and how it's applied. Now in this case, when we utilize the hammer fist, there are many striking surfaces along the body that we can use a hammer fist for. Again, the first main striking surface is obviously we can use the bridge of the nose, striking directly downward onto the bridge of the nose. Now again, the key ingredient is a hard weapon hits a soft target. Simply stated, I don't want to take a hard weapon and hit necessarily a really hard target like the front of his skull. Something's going to give. Either I may break my hand, he may fracture his skull, or both. Sometimes this can be used in relationship to different pressure points, but we're talking on the basic rudimentary level of self-defense, your ability to use something that you can use right away, immediately, if not sooner, in a life or death situation. So rather, we want to strike a soft area. We're going to hit the bridge of the nose. You hit this hard enough, it converts back to its original format. Silly putty. And in regards to that, cartilage is soft and malleable, just like the latex that Bob is made out of. So again, I'm going to take my hand, pow! Hit directly down, hit directly down, hit directly down onto the bridge of his nose. What will that do? Well, first of all, it'll cause his eyes to water. Obviously, there'll be immediate pain. There's a good chance that I'm going to take that cartilage, I'm going to make it into its original format, silly putty. And again, as creatures of habit, we gravitate to where we feel pain. You know, I've got a headache, I broke my nose, I'm choking, I'm having a heart attack, I burnt my finger on the stove. Wherever we feel pain, that's where our hands gravitate to. So, obviously, when I take this hammer fist and I strike down with my hammer fist onto the bridge of the nose, it's going to have a very dynamic effect upon my opponent. Especially for the ladies, again, this is something where, you know, you see the classic films of days gone by where the big brute grabs the small woman and she's beating us, oh, leave me alone, leave me alone, right? Let's not hit here, let's hit here. Strike directly to the bridge of the nose to get a dynamic effect which will cause your opponent to let go of his grip, grab his hands and grab wherever pain with his hands grabbing the bridge of his nose, in pain, backpedaling, eyes watered, eyes closed. If he can't see, he can't fight. Again, you know, it's funny, years ago they had the classic film, The Karate Kid 3. And the character, Thomas Ian Griffith, a Kenpo black belt, by the way, when he's teaching Daniel the Quicksilver method, which they really push as a very derogatory term, and Daniel-san should never learn this method. In practical, real-life self-defense, a lot of the things that he said were very accurate and very true. If your opponent cannot see, they cannot fight. So again, if I strike the opponent here on the bridge of the nose, their eyes closed, their eyes water, their hands come up to their face because they feel this pain, well, guess what? That buys me the time to leave. Do unto others, then split. So it buys me the time in a real-life situation to defend myself and get away. You know, a wonderful cell phone society, pull out the cell phone, dial the police, tell them you've been assaulted and attacked, report it immediately. The hammer fist not only can be used to the bridge of the nose in this vertical alignment, it can also be used horizontally to the temple area, the side of the skull. Again, we're looking for the softer sections of the skull. There are sections of the skull that are softer and more pliable to account for different actions, such as the clenching of your jaw, the tilting of your head. These particular sections of the skull provide for flexation because of those actions. So here, the temple, striking here to the temple. Also, we could also strike to the ear. Striking, again, in this horizontal fashion. And also, we can also strike different planes with this horizontal plane. In other words, different targets with the horizontal plane. Temple, ear, floating rib cage, all on a plane. 1, 2, 3. Also, we can also utilize the hammer fist in a downward action. Now obviously, as we can see, poor Bob has been amputated from the waist down. Well, one of the major dynamic strikes that we can use with the hammer fist is to the groin. And I should mention previously, this cross hammer action, moving across the center line. Cross hammer action, cross hammer to the rib cage. In this case, a cross hammer to the groin. I'm going to strike a little bit, I'm going to strike right at the edge of the abdomen, simulating the groin strike to give you an idea. So from here, rolling, and again, some Kenpo styles will call this a rolling hammer fist. Again, protecting myself, keeping my other hand in a guard or checked position as I strike the groin, strike the ribs, strike the temple or ear. By the same token, we can take our hand, and again, utilizing a hammer fist action, striking down onto the bridge of the nose, bring our hand here, striking to the temple area, striking to the ear, striking to the floating ribs as well. From a side view, we can also utilize this action, striking in this position, again hitting into the bridge of the nose, hitting into the sternum, hitting into the solar plexus, into the navel area as well. Of course, if we can do that to the front of the body and the side of the body, of course, we can move here, and now we can strike the mastoid, another soft flexible section of the skull where the mastoid bones meet with the brainstem, the cerebellum. We can also strike along the spinal column, the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebrae. Striking here, here, and here. Also with the cross hammer action, here, 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 and here. Of course, we can also come down and strike the coccyx or tailbone as well, utilizing that cross hammer action or hammering motion. Another important feature is that we can also utilize simultaneous strikes. Striking to the bridge of the nose and the mastoid, the solar plexus and thoracic vertebrae, the tailbone and groin area as well. That's just one of the many weapons we can utilize, the hammer fist. It's a strong, viable, natural weapon. When you listen in Japanese, they refer to this as tetsui or hansui. Again, tetsui, the iron hammer. Hansui, again, the hammer fist. Another important tool that we can use in our repertoire in relationship to the iron fist strikes, of course, is the seiken, front two-knuckle, straight thrust punch to the bridge of the nose, the pit of the throat area, the point of the chin, the solar plexus, the navel, and of course the groin. From a side view, obviously, we can strike the temple areas, the ear, the floating rib cage as well with this action. We also have a vertical fist. In the Chinese, they call this the sun fist. I should preface back in the Chinese tradition, they also refer to the flat fist, and again, the flat fist. And the vertical position is considered by the Chinese the standing fist. And many Chinese disciplines prefer the standing fist as opposed to the flat fist. Why? They prefer it because of better skeletal alignment. That on a vertical plane, here, I can tilt my wrist to hit higher targets. Horizontal, we don't have that ability to flexation. That enables us to have the rest of our arm backing up the action. On a vertical plane, we do. The flat fist is also referred to sometimes as the Ming Chuan, the on-rushing fist, or sometimes the ram's head blow, because we're hitting with the two major metacarpals of the fist, the two strongest knuckles of our hand. Now we should mention again when we're talking about this again, our metacarpals, our knuckles, the two strongest knuckles of our hands. Some styles will do a rolling action with their punch, like in Wing Chun. But again, we still want to develop those two major knuckles of the hand, the two strongest natural knuckles. That's the key. Now, from hitting with the metacarpals with the punch, whether it be in a horizontal or vertical position, we also have an inverted horizontal punch, which is the uppercut. You strike down into the body, again striking the side here in the floating rib cage. I know it's a little difficult to see on this angle. You can also strike to the chin. This becomes more of an uppercut action. You can also strike to the bridge underneath the nose, punching up at a diagonal angle. This motion, again, some styles will refer to this as the inverted horizontal thrust, because we're taking that horizontal thrust, straight thrust, and turning it upside down. The body shot here. When we come to this action, we deal with the boxing uppercut. Some people would refer to that as a vertical back knuckle thrust. I say back knuckle, not really hitting with the back of your knuckles, still hitting with the front of your knuckles. But the back of your knuckles are facing your opponent. Some styles will call this the back two knuckle, because we're hitting, again, that same alignment. I'm standing the back of your fist, hitting with your two knuckles, etc. Now, from here we're going to take one of the various open hand strikes, and one of the most prevalent natural open hand strikes that you can learn is the use of the heel palm. Some people say palm heel, heel palm. It still hurts when you hit with it. The key ingredient here, when we're going to do this correctly, I want to just show you the proper hand alignment. First thing you should do is tuck your thumb at the side of your hand. You don't want this thumb hanging out and about. Tuck it here at the side of the hand. Let your fingers relax naturally. There are many different styles of utilizing the heel palm. We're going to just extend our other fingers like so that we can focus on the bottom of our palm, the heel of our palm. This is one of the strongest open hand natural weapons that you have. Now here, as I work with Bob, I'm going to slide Bob back a little bit here. When I utilize the heel palm, we're going to strike now not only to the bridge of the nose, we can also strike underneath the nose. I want to push that head back. Now wonderful when his head flexes like that. I want to drive his head back. Taking the heel of my palm, pulling back my fingers, and striking, pushing his head away. Again, underneath the nose is one of the natural balance points of the body, right below that philtrum, that little teardrop-shaped structure just below your nose. This is a balance point. This will push his head back. This will push his head back. The chin is the second balance point. It pushes the head back. It causes the body to move back. So again, striking up at a 45-degree angle, up under the nose. By the way, let's address something very important here. Mind if I use it for a little support there, Bob? Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. There's an old wives' tale about, and it is an old wives' tale. It's an urban legend about the nose bone. As we talked about earlier, it's silly putty. It's cartilage. Once I strike, unless you're striking with sufficient force, that the frontal lobe of the skull, the front section of the skull, breaks upon impact, shatters or fractures, and you can drive a shard of the skull into the brain. In most instances, that cartilage is going to convert to silly putty and just splatter out along the inside of the face. It's that simple. So, you know, if you think you're going to drive soft, malleable, silly putty, clay-like substance, and you're going to drive it through a hard, thick skull, no offense, good luck. However, the previous effects we talked about, eyes watering, eyes closed, hands gravitating to where they feel pain, backpedaling from said pain, preoccupation with the pain so that their focus becomes internal. What do I mean? When you hit someone in the nose, it's not like, when they're ready to fight you, it's what I'm going to do to you. You pop somebody in the nose, it's like, what did you do to me? And that's the key. When they're in this mode, the last thing on their mind immediately upon that is not what they're going to do to you, it's what you did to me. I'm clutching my face, I'm the opponent, I'm in pain, I'm backpedaling. I don't know what happened, but I know one thing, it hurt like the dickens. Now, the second point we're talking about is up under the chin. Heel palm, drive them back. Heel palm, push them away. Even if you're not driving with enough sufficient force to cause pain, at least you're unbalancing your opponent. You're pushing them away from you. Again, here's an important law we teach in Kenpo. The body does not work on diagonals. What do I mean? Meaning, if I push on this plane, he might be able to resist it a lot. However, if I push back on a 45-degree angle, up and back on a 45, we are moving an opponent on all three of his dimensions. Three. Height, width, and depth. Once I do that, that's going to knock him back. It's going to push him back and away on that diagonal angle. That's the key. Now, next, another target we can strike, of course, again, is the solar plexus. Again, notice all three hand positions are the same. The target may change, but the hand is still vertical. Now, if you're going to strike the floating rib cage, obviously this would not be a good alignment. Turn your hand on the 45, drive in this fashion, horizontally. Does that mean I can't use the horizontal heel palm on his face? Sure I can. Now, how many of you ladies out there have dealt with a man who's been a little rude, crude, and socially unacceptable, and you've had to beautifully, intelligently, tenderly, caringly, humanly slap him? You figure it out. So here, pow, slap, paya. Being half Portuguese, I definitely remember my experiences with the Portuguese attention getter. Now, and believe me, being half Portuguese and half Puerto Rican, that in no way, shape, or form is any type of ethnic insult to any race, creed, or national origin. We've all felt, and if we haven't, you're lucky. But the key ingredient is slapping with the heel palm, hitting with the heel of your palm. Now, ideally, as opposed to the conventional slap, utilize the heel palm at the maxillary hinge. Now, what that is, at the insertion point where your jawbone goes into your skull. Hit him correctly and hard enough, that bad boy dislocates. But again, the key ingredient here is just a quick stunning action. If we use the same action, we can slap the ear. Again, causing that ringing of the ears. Do it correctly, you could possibly rupture the eardrum, so please be extremely careful when utilizing this action. Again, striking here. Some people call that action with cupping ear kumite, the bear hand, like a bear's paw. Pow! And to think, a bear can generate up to 1,600 to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, PSI, with a sweep of its paw. That's pretty devastating. The largest bone in the human body breaks at 20 PSI. So again, we're utilizing this horizontal action and circular motion. We can also utilize it in a linear fashion to the side of the face. The sumo utilize this as sepa, the 1,000-hand slap. Drive their opponents back. Again, also striking singularly or with both hands, vertical or horizontal fashion. You can do it to the front of the body. Come here, Bob. He's such a wonderful assistant. We can also do this to the back of the body, striking into the kidneys, striking into the brainstem, striking into the upper back, pushing him away. Really earning your pay today, Bob. So as you can see, the use of the heel palm can be a very effective, devastating weapon. We can also strike across the face, strike across the shoulders, straight across the various parts of the body. Well, that's the heel palm, or palm heel, also known in Japanese as tensho. Tensho, hitting with a heel palm. Our next weapon we're going to be talking about is going to be the hand sword. The hand sword, the knife hand, the sword hand, the axe hand. Whichever term you use, that's a pretty sharp tool you can use. Ooh, quarter, ouch. Put a quarter in the punch jar after that one, right? All right. Knife hand, sword hand, axe hand. Chop. You can utilize the chop in a horizontal fashion across the bridge of the nose, across the philtrum, across the throat, which is the trachea and esophagus area. Again, the trachea area transfers air, the esophagus transfers food. So again, chopping into the throat area, the pit of the throat here, those guys, crushing the Adam's apple. Now from here, again, we can also utilize this to the side of the body, striking again in the temple area, the side of the neck, the floating ribs. Why would we utilize this as opposed to a hammer? Well, again, it's placement and space. To try to hammer fist him in the throat, well, I can fit that in there. But if he's a boxer and tries to tuck in his chin, wham, the hand sword will fit where the hammer fist won't. In regards to that, we can do an inward hand sword, inward knife hand, inward axe hand to the ribs, outward hand sword, outward knife hand, outward axe hand to the ribs. Again, chopping the temple, side of the neck, floating rib cage. We can also chop low across the abdomen, make him fold over. By the same token, chopping again the brainstem, chopping into the lumbar vertebrae, make him come up. Many more of these actions can all be designed utilizing this particular weapon. That's the key. Now, also coming down on a vertical plane, striking to the collarbone, the clavicle, breaking the clavicle, the collarbone, striking it just on a thrusting plane, thrusting action, just to knock him back and drive him away as well. In Japanese they call this the shuto, which is blade hand or knife hand. Again, sword hand, chiensho, and even the use of the axe. They call fusho, dafusho, big axe hand. And depending how big you are, your hand might be pretty big, and that might be a pretty big axe to hit somebody with. Now, we're going to talk next about the use of finger techniques. Again, the poison hand. And I'm just going to go over a couple of basic techniques. And again, I'm going to make the verbal disclaimer once more. These are only to be used in a life or death situation. This is something I don't want little Johnny style, little Susie going, aye! Okay? No. Again, utilize this only in relationship to defending yourself in a life or death situation. So, in this instance, what we're going to utilize, the first thing we utilize is known as, in Chinese called the Fujiao, and, or tiger claw. And I remember a wonderful scene from a comedy, The New Guy, where, he's facing this person in prison, he goes, tiger claw, and he kicks the guy in the groin. Well, in this case, we're actually going to use that implement, the tiger claw. Now again, it's a 5-finger claw, and the key ingredient is we're going to use object obscurity. This is the object. I'm going to obscure his vision. I'm going to put my index finger and my middle finger into his eye sockets. The rest of my fingers are grabbing onto his face. When you got a handful of face, or a face full of hand, depending who you are, your opponent instinctively is going to do one. He's going to close his eyes because nobody's going to keep their eyes open and let you put a finger in their eye. Radical concept. If they do, guess what? They got poked in the eye. But the key ingredient here is when you drive your fingers into the eyes, it makes the person close their eyes. Your other finger's ripping into the face. This can be done in a thrusting fashion, driving directly into the face, or a circular motion where you rake or rip into the face. It can be done in a vertical plane, like so, a thrusting horizontal plane. It can come horizontally, inward, raking across the face, again, grabbing in the air, You ever have your, I don't know if any of you people are graduates of parochial school, but you ever, I remember the nuns grabbing me by the ear. I think I still got scars under them. But also grabbing the ear. You reach out and grab someone. Give me that, I want to talk to you. Grab them. The key ingredients are hitting with the heel palm that we talked about previously, striking with the heel palm, ripping with your fingertips into the eye and the face. Again, striking with the heel palm, grabbing on with your fingertips. Hit with the heel palm, grab on. Hold on there. In relationship to finger techniques also, let's go into our next action, which is the use of the two-finger poke. And again, decorative strike, I've heard called twin dragons searching for the pearls, twin dragons diving for the pearls. In either case, again, as you can see depicted here on the crest, the twin dragons. And again, in this case, each dragon is a fingertip. And you take your two fingers in a thrusting action, drive directly into a person's eyes. I know some of you might be squeamish and go, oh my God, I can never stick my fingers in somebody's eyes. Guess what? In most cases, they'll close their eyes. So in reality, you're not poking them in the eye, you're poking them in the closed eyelid, which again achieves what we talked about earlier. Well, I want my opponent to close their eyes. What they can't see can't hurt me. If your opponent can't see, he can't defend himself. He can't fight. I don't want him to fight. More importantly, I don't want him to fight me. So again, this can be done in a thrusting fashion here, in a horizontal plane. Fingers spread, the rest of the hand in a flat configuration. Or you can roll the rest of your hand up in your fist, curl your fingers, and strike here. Now, what we talk about strike here. Sometimes we don't talk about this wonderful little knuckle here that hits right in the philtrum as you strike with two fingers into the eyes. But the most important thing is quick. But we want to talk about practical applications and basic techniques that you, as a person who's being attacked, can easily and quickly use in a life or death situation. Well, Bob's been pretty beat up today, and he's gotten more than his fair share of action. I hope you've gotten some insights into this. I hope, I hope that in a real life or death situation that you have the ability to defend yourself utilizing these various tools. I hope, as always, that you gain some insight into this, and I hope that, more importantly, that you will take the time to go and learn from a qualified martial arts instructor who will detail out many more of these various aspects that you can effectively utilize to defend yourself in a life or death situation. Well, that being said, this is Joe Rebelo, and we'll be back with more exciting action here on Rebelo'S Kenpo Karate.